Oh, goodness gracious, was that gnarly? I want to very much get that taste out of my mouth. So let's talk about it. Let's start here. Look, a win is always better than a loss. Let's let's state the obvious. And I think if you we're gonna get to the negatives. Just take my word for it. We're gonna get to the negatives. If you want to draw some positives from this one, you could look at the fact that not only did they pull out a close game on the second night of a back-to-back in the fourth quarter, but I would say they largely did it with defense. Yes, Jalen Brunson showed up and finally on a night where he was in the midst of probably having one of his worst nights of the season. He, made the shots when it counted, but that game was won with defense. As I am so thrown by that performance, I forgot to say, welcome to the Knicks Film School Postgame Show presented by BetUS. Now that that's out of the way. So there were a handful of defensive plays over the last, I would say, 3-4 minutes of the fourth quarter, including by some people that you might not expect to make those plays. I thought Cat had a couple of really, really nice defensive plays down the stretch. Really nice defense on Claxton on a possession. Had another one later in the fourth, stood his ground on a pick and roll that led to the JB breakaway that seemed like it was gonna or that was where he hurt his right knee. And then there were some other ones, Josh Hart and OG Anunoby combining to form force a 24-second violation late. Couple other ones. I don't know that anything else warrants share. Oh, OG Anunoby with a steal early on. That was really good. So some good stuff. Josh Hart flying in for the biggest rebound of the game, sealing the deal on a night where, at least for the third quarter, the Knicks couldn't get a rebound. So those are some positives. But that was atrocious. I didn't think any win this season could possibly get worse than the Hornets win on the day after Thanksgiving. I think that one might have did the trick. Granted, the Hornets game was not on the second night of a back-to-back. It was the night after Thanksgiving, so I guess maybe it had the same effect. But no, I know this was the second night of a back-to-back. And you could tell me that they were tired in the second half, and that's why they scored or had one field goal through the first first 8 minutes of the fourth quarter. I stopped doing timestamps, but it was definitely through the first 5-6 minutes of the fourth quarter. They only had one field goal and only scored 3 points. It was gnarly. And as with every underwhelming performance the Knicks have this season, it comes down to, all right, well, are we going to make a big deal out of it? Or are we going to brush it off for the particular reasons that we have that we could brush it off on any particular night? I kind of went through the reasons that we could brush this one off, most of which come down to second night of a back-to-back. And if you want to throw in bad shooting nights happen, fine, I guess. But I thought DJ really nailed it when he tweeted, I think midway through the fourth quarter. But it was, you know what? I'm going to take the time. I want to pull up his exact tweet because it was so perfect. It's from DJ Zulo. Knicks second half offensive analysis: disjointed, careless, and unserious. And the first half, I'll give him a pass. I'll give him a pass because they came out and I thought they were really good out of the gate. They went up, I think, 17-9 on Brooklyn. They were hitting shots. The defense was okay. And then they got complacent. And they're like, this team isn't a real team. And they let him back in. That was their first mistake. Bench came in. got them right back in the position that they should have been. Fantastic first half stint by the bench. Starters came in a little bit more lollygagging. Now, not all the starters. Some of that Precious came in for Karl-Anthony Towns midway through Brooklyn's burst there towards the end of the second quarter. And, man, I got to tell you, I like Precious at the 4. I never thought I'd say this. I like Precious at the 4 so much more than I like Precious at the 5, at least when Karl-Anthony Towns is next to him. And those lineups this year have been really good. I thought they did some nice things tonight, and it's night and day difference because when Precious is your 5, it's just you lack so much size. And when you're going up against a team that has some guys that could do some things offensive rebounding wise, you see it. And then give the Knicks credit. They closed the first half seriously, up 8 at the half. You figure, all right, they'll take care of business early in the third quarter. Put this thing away, and then it is an offensive rebound fest for Brooklyn. I looked it up, and in case anybody missed it, I shouted it out on social media, but the Knicks have had 25 games this year, or only had 25 games this year. So almost like a little bit more than half, where they have given up more than 9 offensive rebounds in a game. Which means if my math is correct, I think they had coming into tonight 18 games in which they held teams for an entire game to 9 or fewer offensive rebounds. They gave up 9 offensive rebounds to the Nets in the third quarter alone. And for that reason, this thing was a game going into the fourth quarter for that reason alone, because everything else they did. I mean, the offense wasn't great in the third quarter either, but like you did enough. You forced some turnovers, but offensive rebounds kept it a game. And look, you never want to be in any kind of a game going into the fourth quarter against a bad team. But when you're a team like the Nets are right now, where like if you're a Nets player between now and 2 weeks from now, like the odds if you're a decent player, the odds you might get traded are pretty good. They know wins are going to be very hard to come by. This is a rivalry for all these guys. I believe that to some extent. You just don't want to give that team motivation. Now, what I will say is I the offense was not good. They were missing some shots, and like we could call out some culprits, and I feel bad calling out this guy in particular because he had some really a ton of impactful defensive plays tonight, and I think OG Anunoby probably has a pretty good chance. In fact, I think I would be shocked if he did not wind up getting one of my stars of the game in the newsletter tomorrow, just because of his defense and because he did actually have a decent game in terms of a scoring output. And overall, he was like not efficient. 8 for 18 is not efficient, but his troubles around the rim at times and his hands, shout out to my man, David Crockett, who skied it at me, like referencing Nerlens Noel. If your hands are being brought up in the same context as Nerlens Noel's hands, that's bad. You don't want to be in that conversation. So there were some of those instances. I thought Brooklyn made a brilliant move. Granted, it took, it compromised their offense a little bit. But when they put Keon Johnson on Jalen Brunson and they didn't have D'Angelo Russell on the floor, so they could not get the Knicks could not get that switch. And that's the one thing Brooklyn has to go to, right? Is they are able, with all of these wings that they have on their team, and like Claxton, who's a decent enough switch guy, they can go to a 5-man defensive lineup where they can pretty much switch everything, and with some real like dogs out there, to use an unpopular term. And that's what they did. And that fourth quarter, typically it's Brunson time. Well, all of a sudden Brunson comes in, it can't really get anything going. And you factor in that the other big Knicks weapon, which is Karl-Anthony Towns' ability to stretch the floor, for the time being, that weapon is not there. I'm not going to sit here and sound alarm bells quite yet, but Katz made only 1 3 since he came back from this thumb injury. He was 0 3 from deep tonight. I think that makes him 1 of 8 or 1 of 9, whatever, since he came back. That's an issue if it continues. I mean, is it going to be an issue until he gets that thumb? I'm assuming he needs thumb surgery in the offseason, I sure as hell hope not, because if he is not a threat from three, then the Knicks' entire offense is compromised. So that's a separate issue. But so they didn't have that to go to, and it forced Cat to put the ball on the floor a lot. I thought overall that yielded positive results. I think Cat, in a really challenging situation, and I know Cat wasn't perfect on either end of the floor, like, he was a positive force tonight. I mean, the dude finished with 25 points and 16 rebounds, to say nothing of 6 assists. I mean, it's a really nice stat line. They, with their offense stuck in the mode the way it was, I think they, like, every one of those tough drives and tough makes they got from Cat, I thought was necessary. And I got to tell you, like, I didn't think he played a bad defensive game. And really, I guess if I'm going to try to get to another positive, other than being unable to clean up the defensive glass in the third quarter, I didn't think it was a bad defensive game for the Knicks. I mean, yeah, there were a couple of breakdowns, like 3, 4, 5 breakdowns on threes. I have not yet brought up the final Nets possession of the game, or the last consequential Nets possession of the game, where good job by Tibbs, takes Cat and Brunson out, puts Precious and Deuce McBride in. Well, the whole reason you do that, obviously, is you switch everything. You don't want to get caught with your pants down in a high screen. And sure as shit, the Knicks, or the Nets, were able to, they got the one switch to get I think it was Precious onto Cam, because that was not his initial matchup. But then when it was Cam and D'Lo involved in the screening action, then all of a sudden Precious sticks with D'Lo for too long, which you cannot do. D'Angelo Russell has gotten a lot of shit over the years, much of it deserved. He is still one of the absolutely best pick and roll point guards in the league, or just generally passing. He's like a great passer. He's a really good passer. So not a surprise at all that he was able to find Cam Johnson in no time flat. And, like, on the initial watch, I thought Precious got back for a half decent contest. On the replay, that's way, way, way too much room in a situation where a 2 ties and a 3 beat you, potentially. And they got lucky that shot didn't go down, and obviously Josh Hart gets the rebound. So defense not perfect, but I didn't, if we're again looking at the big picture, like, they carried over some of the aggressive defense that we saw last night versus Atlanta. I thought that was a positive. The thing that, and again, shout out to Benji Ritholtz, his grade book, and shout out to the Knicks Film School Patreon. If you're not subscribed yet, you're missing out on literally great content every day. In Benji's grade book last night, he pointed out that, look, when you play a more aggressive style of defense like that, it comes at a cost. It comes with occasionally some decent looks at the rim. It comes with some offensive rebounds that you're going to give up. Now, the offensive rebounds that the Knicks gave up in the third quarter, did I think that was a function of their more aggressive defense? I would have to go back and rewatch it, but that's just the sort of thing you're going to get when you play a more conservative defense. You don't, I mean, you may give up more threes. You don't give up as much of that other stuff. It's a choose your battle. That's the thing that I feel like sometimes we don't understand here when we talk about this stuff. Like, there is, against NBA offenses, even bad ones like the Nets, like, you are, at some point, you are picking your poison, unless you just have 5 switchable high-level defenders. But there's only, well, I was going to say there's only one Boston. There's 2. There's Boston, there's OKC. And that's why those teams are so unique, and why they are rightly the co-favorites in whatever order. But enough about them. So, again, all things considered, like the defense, thought we got some big-time defensive plays from key contributors. I mentioned OG. I mentioned Karl-Anthony Towns. I thought Hart, the defense, got better in the second half, certainly. Mikal Bridges, I thought was also, he was fine. I didn't, like, I thought, there's a nice article that came out about him today from Chris Herring. Everybody go check that out. Chris is obviously a must read anytime he writes about anything, especially when he writes about the Knicks. But like, yeah, I'm not gonna get on him for the defense too much, but I'll say it wasn't as serious a defensive performance in the first half as it needed to be, and in particular in transition. I will pull up right now how many fast break points the Nets finished with. It may not have been that many fast break points. Yeah, it was only 17, but like 17 out of 95, and I feel like a good deal of those were in the first half where the Knicks just weren't as clean as they needed to be. Eight of those were in the first half, so I guess it was a problem in the second half too. But either way, not clean enough in transition. Little things. It's all the stuff we've been talking about all year. You know, I am ultimately encouraged, and I'm going to end this on a high note. I'm encouraged by a few things and why, and I'm going to go to bed feeling okay about this one for a few reasons. Feel free to join me or not. It's up to you. Number one, they got the win. You're never too mad at a win in a league where, like, again, this Nets team pushed the Lakers to the brink in LA earlier this week. I think the Lakers won by 1 point. So, like, any NBA team could win on any night. Toronto, I mean, tonight kicked the snot out of Orlando in the second half. And they got, Paolo Banchero back, and like, you never know. You never know. So you always want the win. That's number one. Number two, this is going to come with an asterisk. Back-to-backs have been a bit of a problem for this Knicks team this year. Every back-to-back they've played, literally every back-to-back that they have played, the second night of that back-to-back, they have performed poorly in some capacity. So second night of back-to-back, I'm gonna give them a little bit of a break there. Number three, I kind of talked about it already. I thought the defense, I didn't look at tonight as like a big step back on defense. I thought about it, if anything, as like a step to the side. So that was good as well. And then, what I opened the show with. At the end of the day, close game. You got to make plays to win. Knicks at one point, they were down. Were they down by 1 in the fourth quarter? All right. You're losing on the road in the fourth quarter. You make enough plays to win. Shout out to Jalen Brunson. Certainly not his best game, but did what he needed to do to help his team cross the finish line. Just looking at the stat sheet real quick and see if there's anything else that warrants talking about. I mean, both of these teams shot atrociously. The Knicks have now. We could do this. I think they may have already done this season. I'll see if I could look it up real quick. Yeah, I should be able to look this one up real quick. So last season, I mentioned this stat a bunch of times. The Knicks won 6 games all year in which they shot 33% or worse from downtown. They came into tonight with 6 wins already, so they have now surpassed last season's win total in games where they have shot 33% or worse from deep. In such games this year, they are now 7-10. Last year, they were, I believe, 6-18 or 6-19. One of those numbers. So, this team's gotten a bit of a reputation this year as a team that can't win games in which they don't shoot well. Well, here's another game that they won in which they didn't shoot well. So, give them credit for that too. Yeah, I think that's it. 29 assists on 40 made field goals. You like that? Their one-on-one offense was bleh tonight. They got good looks and had good outcomes when they passed the ball, which you like to see. You would like to see them do it more because the fourth quarter offense, there wasn't much of that, but you live and you learn. Okay. That's enough. Let's do the Autograph signature moment of the game. Shout out to Autograph, of course. Go download the Autograph app. Use code KFS when you do. Get to see tons of exclusive content from your favorite content creators and rack up points just for doing all the things you normally do. I got a couple choices here for the Autograph signature moment of the game. Think I will go. I mean, the OG dunk that put them up 5 was really nice. I liked that. It did not ultimately seal the game. So I think I'm going to go with the Josh Hart rebound and timeout before he fell out of bounds as the autograph signature moment of the game. Let's go with that. Josh Hart making winning plays, so you love to see it.